I got an email the other day regarding some concussion questions, and I wanted to make this video to address those questions. Eat healthy, because you kind of need a team of professionals to guide you through all of this stuff. Sleep hygiene, exercise, nutrition, the same things that you should be doing whether you're injured or not. Sometimes it felt like I was stuck in a club. What is up, everybody? Ralph coming at you from the basement. And today I'm coming at you with another post-concussion syndrome update. Isn't that exciting? So I said that in 2017 I was going to work more at updating you guys on my progress with recovering from a concussion that I had in the summer of 2015, and it has been about 16 and a half months since the accident, and I'm still dealing with post-concussion syndrome, or basically residual symptoms from that head injury. Brain injury is really what it is. And a few people have emailed with questions, and I'm totally open to discussing, questions and topics around this subject. I'm definitely not a doctor. I'm definitely not a nutritionist. I'm definitely not anything other than someone who has been struggling through this experience and taking note of things that have been particularly effective for me along the way, and hoping that we can kind of share those resources, and not just for people who are dealing with a specific injury, but who are dealing with wanting to improve themselves as human beings, improve their health, improve your mental well-being, and just become a better version of you. I got an email the other day from an online friend regarding some concussion questions, and I wanted to make this video to address those questions. So here we go. Thank you, first of all, Anonymous, for sending the email. I really appreciate it. It's always nice to find out about other people's stories and how you're dealing with this tough injury. He's basically been experiencing a lot of tinnitus, some migraines, and he wanted to ask me a couple questions on the recovery. So here are my questions. From Anonymous. How do you find a concussion specialist? Most doctors seem to have very little knowledge about PCS. So when you're looking for someone to help you through your recovery, it does seem like there is a huge lack of knowledge about concussions and post-concussion syndrome. And I've been talking to my physiotherapist lately, and she's been saying that there's a lot of people who kind of jump on the bandwagon of concussion. It's a very hot topic right now. There's a lot of emerging research. There's a lot of stuff around the NFL, the NHL, and contact sports and the damage of concussions. So therefore, clinics kind of pop up all over the place that say, hey, we deal with concussion. Hey, we can help you. We can do this. We can do that. And you have to be very careful with who you go to, especially in the acute stages of your injury, because it can determine the length of your recovery. It can determine a lot of things. And it can also be a matter of, how you're doing mentally through the whole process. Because if you get the right person, they can kind of guide you in the right direction. They can give you the appropriate treatments. That's going to make you feel better mentally about your improvement, as well as, physically, if you're doing the right things. So how do you find a specialist? I would honestly, you have to research it and, look for reviews in your area. If you're in Canada, you can look for people who have the complete concussion management symbol. Look for a group of clinics that are under an umbrella that is working on staying up with emerging research. A lot of people that I've talked to about going to a neurologist have been frustrated with their neurologists or their family doctors. That's not their specialty. Concussion is not their specialty. It's no one's specialty, really. I would recommend going to see someone who has vestibular training. Always address your neck, because that's been a huge part for me. And I've heard, based on different research, that you can get whiplash without getting a concussion, but you can't get a concussion without receiving some sort of neck trauma as well. It's important to keep your neck muscles strong, so physio is great for that. See someone with vestibular training again. Talk to somebody about possible visual stuff. A lot of it's going to be personalized, and it's going to be based on what symptoms you need to address. So if you're having trouble with balance, go see someone with vestibular training. If you're having trouble with, emotional stuff or anxiety, see a therapist, look into nutrition and exercise, subsymptom exercise. I know it's kind of a vague answer, but you really have to do some research and look for recommended people in your area. Look for someone with vestibular training, someone who has positive feedback from people who have had concussions and gone to that clinic. That's really important. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, second question. Have you tried chiropractic treatment and do you think it's worth a try? I have done chiropractic after my concussion. It did help for a period of time, but I've also discovered that it created some sort of like almost like endorphin addiction. Every time I would get my neck cracked or my back adjusted, I would get this like release of endorphins and feel great. And then 2 weeks would go by and I'd feel the same and I'd need another crack. And that's kind of the response that I got from the physiotherapist. And it depends on who you're talking to. If you talk to a chiropractor, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, chiropractic's great. You know, it's gonna adjust your spine. It's gonna allow for better blood flow and circulation and better movement, you know, where your nerves are, because the nerves kind of come back down through the top of your spine. And it's gonna allow for more mobility. If you talk to a physiotherapist, they're gonna say, you know, the kind of harsh adjustments aren't as great for you in the long term. It does create this kind of addictive feeling, this endorphin rush of like, oh yeah, crack, release, I feel great, and then you have to come back. So my personal experience, my personal opinion, and again, I'm not a doctor, so don't take my word for it. You got to kind of work through it. Chiropractic helped for a period of time to increase mobility and strain and circulation for the lower spine. But when I went to physio, I found out that I was kind of hypermobile in those lower vertebrae, but those top two vertebrae, the C1 and C2, that were really causing a lot of visual and headache problems, were not being addressed. And that's where I needed to go to physio. Sometimes it's a combination of these things. I think ultimately it's like putting all these things together to finish your own puzzle. And again, it sucks that it's so vague, but for me personally, it was a combination of chiropractic to adjust that tension and circulation in the back, the lower part of the upper spine, and then physio to address the rest of it. Can you share the recovery guideline with me, like what to eat, when to sleep, what supplements to take, etc.? I know you're not a doctor, and I take full responsibility of how to use this information. Well, I appreciate that because I'm definitely not a doctor, and I know I've said that a lot, but a lot of it is self-experimentation, a lot of it is individualized, and so, okay, what I'll say is, I'm gonna tell you the things that have worked for me in terms of routine. I can't give you a recovery outline because you kind of need a team of professionals to guide you through all of this stuff. You need someone who can help you, you know, mentally through it, like a therapist. You need someone who can help you through it physically, like a physiotherapist or someone trained with VOR, vestibulo-ocular reflex rehabilitation, which is that it helps with spatial awareness and depth perception and balance. You need a team of people, and I've had a team of chiropractic, physio, optometrist, vestibular training, all sorts of stuff. So it has to come together, but also really important is routine. And routine has been a huge thing for me, and I know it's driven Lou crazy, but sleep hygiene is so important. So set a regular sleep time. So for me, a lot of the time it would be 10:30 bedtime. Okay, so I plan on being in bed at 10:30. And then set like a similar wake time every morning. So for me, for a while, it was from 10:30 to 6:30 a.m. I'm trying to get more sleep now, so I'd ideally like to get 9 hours. So I try and sleep from 10:30-ish to about 7:30. If you can maintain that, it helps reset your body's clock, and you can have overall better sleep, which is really important because that's when your brain kind of cleans itself and gets its rest that it needs to heal. Also, in terms of routine, exercise, having an exercise routine is really important. If you're dealing with a lot of symptoms, make sure it's sub-symptom exercise, so getting your heart rate up to a point where you're bringing on symptoms and then back off, because you don't want to be redlining. And this is where you need a physiotherapist to help you find your target heart rate, find the percentage at which you can get an aerobic exercise for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then make sure you're not bringing on too many symptoms. And getting your heart rate up will help with circulation, it'll help with oxygen to your brain, and it's been very effective for me. And also, that helps with sleep. Exercise helps with sleep. Sitting around all day, being stuck in a dark room is not good for you mentally or physically. You're not going to sleep well. You're going to create you're going to create anxiety for yourself. It's not a good thing. And then again, nutrition. So in terms of nutrition, I personally have found it hugely helpful to adhere to a mostly paleo diet, and that includes eliminating refined sugars and refined grains and most grains in general, because those foods tend to be pro-inflammatory. And again, I'm not a nutritionist. I don't fully understand all of this stuff, but this is kind of what I've read and what has worked for me. So avoiding processed grains, refined sugars, eating a high healthy fat diet with lots of leafy green cruciferous vegetables, supplementing with things like turmeric or curcumin, which is has very high anti-inflammatory effects, especially when paired with pepper, black pepper, or something called piperine. You can find supplements with turmeric and piperine, really good for anti-inflammatory properties. Cruciferous vegetables, it's important to get lots of leafy green vegetables because they're anti-inflammatory and they help with other things as well, like eliminating carcinogens from your blood. There's just eat healthy. I mean, have a routine. If you eat breakfast at a certain time, eat breakfast at a certain time and try and get a decent amount of protein with a decent amount of fiber and some decent amount of fats. And just try and avoid high sugar foods, refined or processed foods, and try and eat as naturally as possible. I've also been supplementing with fish oil because EPA and DHA is really good for mood balance as well as inflammation in the brain, general inflammation. Lately I've been supplementing with wheatgrass and grass-fed whey protein, and a lot of it is just experimenting again and finding out what works for you. But one thing that I've noticed for sure is staying hydrated, avoiding refined, processed garbage foods, eating lots of healthy green cruciferous vegetables, and you can find really great recipes that adhere to a paleo diet. We make these brownies from coconut flour that are delicious, and they kind of hit that sweet spot. Dark chocolate is another thing that's good for you. Make sure it's above 75% cacao. All these things you can adjust, and it really does help. Food has been huge in helping me balance my mood, help me balance my energy. And I want to point out one thing too, is I know a lot of people who have problems with concussion symptoms have a lot of fatigue problems. The number one thing for me that has helped with fatigue and energy is my diet. Sleep hygiene, exercise, nutrition. The same things that you should be doing whether you're injured or not. Okay, and I understand that there's going to be some limitations based on your symptoms. I think I missed one question in there too, and I know this is kind of getting long. Oh, okay, yes, I forgot this question. So was your tinnitus very loud at the beginning? Did the volume of the tinnitus reduce over time? Yes, to all of that. I had bad tinnitus when I first had the injury. It was distracting, it caused anxiety, it made it difficult to sleep. It was like I had a high pitch frequency in both ears and a low pitch frequency hum in my left ear. Sometimes it felt like I was stuck in a club. It was so frustrating. And that hum still comes back every once in a while in the left ear, and I don't know if it's a neck issue or what. But the tough thing about tinnitus, depending on who you talk to, is there's not really a lot you can do for it other than give yourself some quiet every day meditation. Don't try to suppress the noise. Don't try and ignore the noise. And this is a lot of working on your mental state of being, which is where meditation, reflective practices like journaling or just taking some time to be quiet, some sensory deprivation or floating. I think acknowledging that frustrating noise that's constantly there and just being okay with it, or not pushing it away, not being frustrated about it, just allowing it to be there, you kind of get used to it. And it has decreased over time for me. It's still there, and if I think about it too long, then it's could be frustrating, but on the list of symptoms that I still have to deal with on a daily basis, it is definitely not the most prominent, and it's probably the least of my worries. So it will probably, subside over time, but really work on mental training. Float, sensory deprivation was a huge thing to help with that, and I've only done it once, but it had such a profound effect. I really want to go back soon. So yes, I had tinnitus at the beginning. It was very loud. It was very distracting. It was made me anxious, caused problems with sleep, but it will decrease over time, and hopefully with addressing some neck issues, it will help decrease that volume. Taking some time to be quiet and create some space will help as well. So thanks again to Anonymous for sending that email in. I hope you find something useful in this video. I appreciate you guys emailing about this stuff, and I appreciate your kind words and stuff. It's really nice. I'm glad we have this community to share this information and stuff. And of course, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a professional, I'm just a person who had a crappy experience and want to take the positive things from that experience and share it with other people who are struggling with similar things. So thank you for watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.